Music videos in a row, bitch. Anyway, I don't know if tier list videos are still popular. I remember everyone was making these a few months ago, around May, June, somewhere around there. And I guess you could say I'm a little late to the party. I don't care. I've been wanting. This is a tier list I've been wanting to. This is a tier list video I've been wanting to make for a while. I just haven't been able to do it because I just recently got this laptop, and I didn't want to do it on my phone. It would have been messy and such. So now I can do it with ease, and as the title suggests, this is a Pink Floyd tier list video. I don't know if I'll ever do another video. I don't know if I'll ever make another a tier list video ranking albums from other bands and artists that I like. Maybe I will, who knows? But for now, I just plan on making a Pink Floyd album tier list because I love the fuck out of Pink Floyd. As you all probably know, Pink Floyd is my favorite band ever. I'm just incredibly passionate when it comes to Pink Floyd. And plus, I watched one other tier list, Pink Floyd tier list video about a week ago, which really made me want to do this video even more because I didn't like it. I thought it was kind of shitty. And also because it was literally the only tier list video of Pink Floyd, I believe, that's on a tier list video that's on Pink Floyd that's on YouTube, I believe. I didn't see any other ones. Correct me if I'm wrong, if there are other ones, but I just saw one, and it was like just under 3 minutes, and I didn't like it. I disagreed with a lot of the guys' opinions and such, so I wanted to make my own. Leading it, and this is a perfect lead into this. If any of my rankings or opinions on certain albums really bother you, make your own tier list video. That's what I'm doing. So yeah, anyways, without further delay, let's get into this. Actually, wait, before I begin, I love this background I chose for Google Chrome. It's awesome. I think that kind of I think that kind of spoiled my list, didn't it? Whatever. Anyway, let's begin. First off, More by Pink Floyd. All the way in D tier. By the way, I guess I should clarify. I don't know if these have a specific order. These tier list thingies, these sections. I don't really know much about these tier list things. But here's the order that each tier will be in. From here will be my least favorite of each tier, and as the tier goes on, the last album I'll add in each tier will be my favorite of each tier until I get to my absolute favorite Pink Floyd album in S tier. And there's no F tier in this. There was no F tier in this tier thingy that I clicked on. And plus, I don't think any Pink Floyd album is truly F tier. For me, F tier would suggest that the album has no redeemable qualities whatsoever, and it's just bad throughout, and it's just a chore to listen to. And you know, for me, every Pink Floyd album has at least one gem that I really, really love. And this album is no exception. I mean, just because More is my least favorite Pink Floyd album doesn't mean, I think it's garbage or, it's just a terrible album throughout. It's not. It does have some gems. I really do love songs like Cirrus Minor, the Nile song, Green is the Color, Cymbeline. I love the fuck out of that song. Ibiza Bar, songs like those. And also I do like one of the more fillery tracks like More Blues and songs like that. And I kind of sort of like Crying Song, but I'm not too crazy about it. But then there's also a bunch of just tracks I really don't care for at all, like Up the Kiefer or Party Sequence or Quicksilver. Spanish Piece is fucking so laughable. I mean, it's not good, but it's funny. I'll give it that. And Dramatic Theme is also another one I just don't care for at all. It's a soundtrack album, I know, and I did watch the movie that this album was made for once back in 2015, I believe. And I don't remember much of it. It was some weird 60s indie film, that didn't really catch my attention aside from one scene. There was some hot lesbian scene there. That was the highlight of the movie for me. Anyway, moving on. Ummagumma, also in D tier. I don't really. This is an album that I see so many Pink Floyd fans rag on and say, "Oh, it's Pink Floyd's absolute worst album." The other tier list video of Pink Floyd albums I saw, the guy put it all the way at the bottom and was like, "Oh, it's trash. It's garbage throughout." And he didn't really say much aside from that. And I'm like, "Don't do Ummagumma like that." Don't do Ummagumma like that. I mean, yeah, sure, it's abrasive, very, very experimental, and, it's not great, but the live stuff is actually really great in my opinion. I love all of the live tracks. Careful That X, Eugene, Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun. I like the Ummagumma version more than the Saucerful of Secrets version. And also, speaking of Saucerful of Secrets, the song Saucerful of Secrets I also really like on Ummagumma. I wasn't crazy about it on the album Saucerful of Secrets, but I think the Ummagumma version is better. But Astronomy Domini, hands down the best version. Ummagumma hands down has the best version of the song. I'm sorry, really love the Ummagumma version. I listen to it a lot, kind of. But also the studio stuff, which is really what people rag on a lot when it comes to this album. It isn't that bad. I like most of Sisyphus. Aside from part three I don't like at all. One of my least favorite Pink Floyd songs ever. Grantchester Meadows is really good. I like all of the Narrow Way. Well, maybe not part two, not so much, but part three is probably my favorite song off the album. Grand Visor's Garden Party, no, I don't care for. I'm sorry. Um, but anyways, what I also really like about this album is how experimental it is. I believe each member for the studio portion of the album. Sisyphus is Richard Wright's project. Grantchester Meadows and Several Species of Small Furry Animals is Roger Waters' tracks, and Narrow Way is completely David Gilmour, and Grand Visor's Garden Party is Nick Mason's songs. Each member, it was kind of this album is kind of like, I don't know if this is uh, completely correct of me to say, but each song in the studio section of the album is kind of like each member's little solo project, because this wasn't really a collaborative effort. Each member worked on their own songs and such on this album, and it's kind of unique in that way. I can really commend Pink Floyd for doing something different with this album, even if it wasn't all that great. I believe Richard Wright in a Pink Floyd documentary called this album a failed experiment. I wouldn't go as far as to say this was a failed experiment, but it certainly wasn't a successful experiment, to say the least. All right, C tier, The Endless River. A lot of people don't like this one. A lot of people say it's a David Gilmour cash grab. Maybe it is. I don't really consider it the real final Pink Floyd album. That goes to Division Bell, since I believe Endless River pretty much consists of tracks that were not used for Division Bell, and I believe there were also unfinished Division Bell tracks, and that's really what the Endless River is made up of. But, regardless, and also some people have also goofed on the album and said, oh, it's good if you want to put yourself to sleep. Well, yeah, I like the album. It's nice and peaceful. I mean, there's not really too much to say about the Endless River. It was nice to get at least one more Pink Floyd album, right? Right, and it was nice to get a Pink Floyd album in my lifetime, since I didn't exist when Division Bell came out. But regardless, anyway, I still liked it. Louder Than Words was a nice send off to Pink Floyd. Yeah, it's just kind of a album that exists. I don't have too much to say about it. I still like it more than these two. Yeah, moving on. Ugh. I made a tier list before, but I'm not entirely sure. I don't remember it entirely because I made it a few months ago, and plus when it comes to Pink Floyd, my opinions change a lot. So, yeah, I don't think this tier list will be exactly the same as the tier list I made a few months ago. And if I do make another Pink Floyd tier list sometime in the future, I'm sure it won't be the same as this one. But yeah, Obscured by Clouds. This is another soundtrack album. I forget the movie it was supposed to be made for. I never watched it, unlike more. Uh, there's tracks here I like. There's some tracks here that I think are pretty damn good, actually. Like the title track I really enjoyed, but most of, most of all, I really, really love Childhood's End. Far and away my favorite track off this album. And other songs are really good too off this album, like Burning Bridges, What's the Deal? I always found that name to be kind of funny, and Stay. And there's other songs that I don't like as much, like Free Four and When You're In is a nice little instrumental, but gets kind of boring. And Absolutely Curtains and Mudmen, songs like those that are good, but I don't necessarily care for all too much. It's still a solid album, and I do consider it Dark Side of the Moon in beta. This was the album that came right before Dark Side of the Moon, and I believe the director of the movie asked them to make this soundtrack while they were working on Dark Side of the Moon, which you would notice if you listen to this album, a lot of the songs on this album are very reminiscent of Dark Side of the Moon. I mean, hell, Childhood's End, the intro to Childhood's End sounds very similar to the intro to Time. Fucking amazing Pink Floyd song. But anyways, still, even if this is kind of sort of a half-baked Dark Side of the Moon, it's still a really solid effort from Pink Floyd, regardless. Again, just because I'm ranking these albums kind of low doesn't mean these are necessarily bad albums, just albums that don't compare to the other albums that it's up against. I mean, come on, it's fucking Pink Floyd. They made so many great albums. And again, no Pink Floyd album is without its gems. I'm debating on whether or not to put Piper in C tier or B tier, but I'm putting Piper in C tier. This might make people angry. I've seen a lot of people praise Piper and say it's one of Pink Floyd's best albums and yada yada yada. It's a great album, don't get me wrong, but I'm just not into it all too much. I mean, again, it has a lot of really great tracks. I mean, I really love Astronomy Domini. Again, I really like the Ummagumma version more, but still, great track regardless, studio or live. Lucifer Sam, Matilda Mother, Flaming, Take Up Thy Stethoscope and Walk. Interstellar Overdrive is actually one of my favorite Pink Floyd instrumentals. The Gnome, Chapter 24 are good, and Bike, I kind of like that track. I mean, the second half of that track is fucking weird, but it's a good kind of weird, like how Pink Floyd is in general, good kind of weird. And, I like it. The Syd Barrett stuff was pretty good. I'm not going to discredit him and say, oh, the Syd Barrett era of Pink Floyd is absolute shit, because it's not. It really isn't. But still, I'm just not into it. It's very different from what Pink Floyd did afterwards, which I do think is better than what they did in this album, in my opinion. It really does make me think how Pink Floyd would have fared had Syd Barrett never leave the band, but I'll get more into that kind of talk with this album. Saucerful of Secrets in B tier. This is probably another unpopular opinion, but I like this album more than Piper. It's more reminiscent of what Pink Floyd did later on than Piper. Mostly because, for a lot of this, Syd Barrett wasn't a part of, I believe, in the middle of making this album, he was kicked out of the band. I mean, his final song with Pink Floyd is in this album, Jug Band Blues, which is kind of sort of a depressing song, since knowing the fact that, he knew that he was going to be shafted out of the band pretty soon. But I still really love this album. Let There Be More Light is great. Remember a Day is my favorite track off the album, probably. Corporal Clegg, kind of weird, but I like it. Saucerful of Secrets, the title track. I never really got into that song all too much. It's cool. I especially like Nick Mason's drumming solo. If you consider it a solo in that song, the part of the song, I really like that part actually. But really solid album by Pink Floyd. Oh, Seesaw is another great song. And of course, like I mentioned before, Jug Band Blues, Syd Barrett's final song with Pink Floyd. Also really great. Really weird, but still really great. Second, The Controls for the Heart of the Sun is also pretty good. Again, I like the Ummagumma version more, but this version is also still pretty good. Alright, next up for beats here. I guess... Division Bell. All right. Well, I consider this to be the real final Pink Floyd album. Because, well, again, Endless River is pretty much just a bunch of unfinished Division Bell tracks, and I know it wasn't actually intended to be the final Pink Floyd album, but it just kind of sort of ended up being the final one for whatever reason. But still, really great album. Definitely one of my favorites, and far and away my favorite Gilmour led album. I don't know why I forgot about I don't know why I forgot about Momentary Lapse of Reason. I actually did intend to put it here, but for some reason I forgot about it. I'll talk about this album first, and then I'll talk about this album, okay? Sorry for the little flub there, but Division Bell is really great. A lot of people rag on this. A lot of people rag on the Gilmour-led era in general. They say, oh, Pink Floyd really lost something after Roger left the band, and yeah, they did, but I still think they did pretty solid even without Roger. What Do You Want From Me is great. Pulls Apart is great. Marooned is great. Wearing the Inside Out is great. Take It Back is great. Coming Back to Life is great. Keep Talking I also really like. Lost for Words, it's good. And High Hopes, for a great track. Definitely my favorite off of this album. And also, I do consider High Hopes to be another great send off for Pink Floyd. If you don't want to count The Endless River as an actual Pink Floyd album, and so if so, High Hopes is definitely a great finale for Pink Floyd. Anyway, let's get to the inferior David Gilmour album. During the for Pink Floyd. I'm not too big on Momentary Lapse of Reason. Actually, wait, let me change the order here. I like it less than Obscured by Clouds. There we go. That's just right. Look, there's some really great stuff off of Momentary Lapse of Reason. Don't get me wrong. Uh, there's great songs like One Slip, On the Turning Away, Yet Another Movie. Sorrow is easily my favorite track off the album, but I don't like the generic 80s sound this album has, honestly. It just doesn't seem. It just doesn't sound too much like Pink Floyd. It sounds more like a Gilmour effort than a Pink Floyd effort, honestly. Whereas Division Bell, some may disagree with me, but it sounds way more like a Pink Floyd album than Momentary Lapse of Reason does. Some people might say, oh, without Roger, it's not Pink Floyd, it doesn't sound like Pink Floyd. Shut the fuck up, please. I still really love the Gilmour era. Not to say that this is a bad album in the slightest, it's not, but just one I don't really come back to all too much. Anyway, let's get back to these albums. Let's see, first for A tier. Which do I pick? I'm trying to think of these on the spot. Again, the last tier list I made for Pink Floyd was a few months ago, so this is all completely on the spot, off the cuff, and I'm sure my opinions for most of these albums have changed since I made the last tier list for Pink Floyd. Uh, Yeah, I guess I'll put the final cut here. This is probably really controversial too. So many people probably would put final cut in either D tier or C tier, but I put it in A tier because I just love this album. I know so many people say this is a Roger Waters solo effort. It's an inferior version of The Wall. It's not good. I still love it, okay? Regardless, yeah, sure, call this more of a Roger solo effort than a Pink Floyd effort. Yeah, okay, I do agree with you on that, but I still love the fuck out of this album. Okay, so many great tracks off this album. The Post-War Dream, Your Possible Past, Hero's Dream, The Hero's Return, sorry. The Gunner's Dream, Paranoid Eyes is alright, but I still really like it. Fletcher Memorial Home, Southampton Dock, and The Final Cut, if you want to consider those one track, since they're kind of sort of meant to be listened together. Uh, Final Cut being one of my favorite Pink Floyd songs, honestly, the title track to the album. So much emotion in that guitar solo just gets me every time. Again, it's just a very emotional album, and that's what I really like about it. It pulls some it pulls some heartstrings for me, all right? And a lot of people say, oh, this is just Daddy Died, the album. Huh, I wish Roger would just shut the fuck up about his dead daddy. Okay, yeah, maybe he does bring up his dead dad a bit too much, but I don't really mind it. I don't mind it at all in this album. I mean, he's letting some emotion go regarding something very personal to him that really hurts him. And I'm a sucker for songs and albums like that. And I think he pulled it off really well in this album. Oh, and not to mention Not Now John is a fucking phenomenal track as well. My second favorite off this album probably. I have trouble between Your Possible Past and Not Now John when I'm deciding my second when I decide which is my second favorite track off of this album. But anyway, yeah, fight me. I think Final Cut is a great album. I don't care what other people think about it. I still love it regardless. I never understood the hate for this album whatsoever. Anyway, Adam Hart Mother, right above Final Cut. This is another really great Pink Floyd album. I love the title track. Absolutely love it. Easily my favorite Pink Floyd instrumental. I needed to think a little there. I was thinking, oh, maybe this track is the better instrumental. Maybe that track is a better instrumental. No, it's easily Adam Hart Mother for me, or Adam Hart Mother Suite, whatever you want to call it. Um, Not to mention the other tracks here that are also good. The ones with the lyrics at least. If is also pretty good. Fat Old Son is great. Good, I should say. I don't think it's better than If. Summer '68 though is actually my favorite track off of this album. It's the one that Richard Wright sings. I've always really loved this song. I remember back in 2015, I would listen to this song constantly. This song was almost like a drug for me, you know? Every time I would listen to it, I just wanted to listen to it at least 15 more times. I don't know what the fuck is with me in that song. I still really love it to this day. I'm not obsessed with it like I was back then, but still, great song regardless. Again, Summer '68 is my favorite track off of Adam Hart Mother, with the title track being a very, very close second. And I guess we should also talk about Alan's Psychedelic Breakfast. So many people don't like this track. I I remember covering this track when I made a video compiling a bunch of songs and albums that are hated by many people, but I personally enjoy, and I remember this song being one of them. I never got the hate for this song. Yeah, it's kind of silly with Alan eating his breakfast over nice calming music, you know. But it just works. I like the instrumentals in the song, and again with Alan eating his breakfast always kind of got a laugh out of me. It's an enjoyable track, okay? I like it regardless of what people think about it. Anyway, last one for A tier. Meddle. Great album. Great album. One of These Days, Pillow of Winds, Fearless, Echoes, all phenomenal tracks. Echoes especially. I actually do prefer the Pompeii version of Echoes over the studio version. Yeah, a very controversial opinion, I know. Anyway, but Echoes is definitely one of the best Pink Floyd tracks ever. Not to mention One of These Days is also really great. Pillow of Winds is great. Probably my second favorite, actually, behind Echoes, Pillow of Winds. Most people would probably say One of These Days or Fearless, but no, for me it's Pillow of Winds. I always love how calming that song is, especially after a track like One of These Days. Very nice track. Fearless is also really good, and then we get the Sancho Pay and Seamus. Sancho Pay is all right. It's another nice, soothing, calming song with Roger speaking about the band's visit to Sancho Pay. I believe, I think it was a vacation to Sancho Pay. It's nice. It's not great, but it's still nice. And Seamus, it's funny, but not too great. I consider Seamus to be a filler track. Uh, anyway, S tier. Very predictable four albums for S tier. I know, whatever. You rag on me all you want for picking for picking the most obvious four albums for S tier, whatever. Anyway, let's get to my least favorite out of the S tier albums. This might be controversial. The Wall. Why do I consider The Wall worse than these three albums? Well, worse kind of sounds a little too harsh. Not as good as the three other albums that I'm going to put in S tier. Uh, a lot of filler on The Wall, honestly. There were some tracks I'm not too fond of, like Don't Leave Me Now. I don't like Roger's voice in Don't Leave Me Now at all. It's way too whiny. And, other songs like Vera and Bring the Boys Back Home, Stop, songs like those that, are just there to kind of push the story along, but not really there for the listener's enjoyment all too much, I'm not too fond of the filler tracks in this album, and it's a little too Roger Waters-y for me. You might be saying, well, you like the final cut though. Not to say that the Wall is bad because of that, but Roger is really front and center in this album. He sings a lot more than he did in previous albums, and I think Pink Floyd is at their best when it's more of a collaborative effort. When all of the members kind of get their moment to shine, and the Wall, Rogers, clearly the one that's front and center in this album. Fight me all you want when it comes to that. I know there's still really amazing moments between the other members in this album. Yeah, I would say my favorite track off of The Wall is Hey You. I know, yeah, it's not comfortably numb like a lot of other people think. Like a lot of other people think is the best track, but for me, my favorite is Hey You. Anything more to say about this album? No, I guess I can move on. Wish You Were Here, my third favorite Pink Floyd album. Really amazing album. I don't really have too much to say about this album other than the fact that I think it's great. Shine On You Crazy Diamond, the title track, Have a Cigar, the other Shine On You Crazy Diamond, all great tracks. I would say Welcome to the Machine is kind of a track that I don't listen to all too much unless I'm listening to the album in full. I don't go back to that one all too much. It's still a great track, don't get me wrong, but not exactly as good as the other four tracks in my opinion. All right, next up, Dark Side of the Moon, the album cover that a lot of people have on their shirts, but have never listened to the album at all and probably have no fucking clue it's actually an album cover and not a shirt design. Again, I have no problem with people who wear band logos and album covers on their shirts and they have no fucking clue what the album they have no fucking clue about the band or the album at all and just wear the shirt because it looks cool. I never had a problem with that. But anyways, let me actually get to the album itself. Great album. This is another album I can't really say much about other than the fact that I think it's amazing. I mean, come on. Tracks like Breathe, Time, Great Kick in the Sky, Money, Us and Them, Brain Damage, and Eclipse, if you want to consider those two separate tracks. All completely phenomenal. Us and Them being probably one of my favorite Pink Floyd songs of all time. Probably my second favorite next to another track that I'll get into very, very soon, but extremely, extremely iconic album. One of the best-selling albums of all time. You just can't argue with this album. It's amazing. It really is. Anyway, let's get to my favorite. Animals. I know this is a meme among many Pink Floyd fans. Underrated album, to be honest. So this is my favorite Pink Floyd album. I actually do consider this to be my favorite album. And, I know it's a meme to say that this album is underrated, but really, compared to the other three that are here, I mean, it's definitely the lesser known of the big four. I mean, The Wall has Comfortably Numb, Hey You, Another Brick in the Wall, Part 2, Mother, other songs that get a lot of radio play. Wish You Were Here has the title track, and Shine On You Crazy Diamond. Dark Side of the Moon has Breathe, Time, Great Gig in the Sky, Us and Them, Money, Brain Damage, and Eclipse. All really, really iconic tracks off of all these albums. But you don't really hear Animals be talked about all too much outside of the Pink Floyd fandom, at least. I mean, I don't think any tracks on here get a serious amount of airplay. I mean, well, actually, one time in 2016 I heard Pigs on my rock station, and it was actually played in its entirety as well. It wasn't like a radio edit or anything. It was actually the whole song, which actually made me really happy. And also, not to mention, this album has my favorite Pink Floyd song of all time, Dogs. Oh my god, one of my favorite songs ever, honestly. I love Dogs so much. It is just an amazing track. It's 17 minutes, but it feels like a lot less. It really definitely goes by a lot quicker than what one may think it is. I'm sure some people have looked at the length of these tracks, especially Dogs, and was like, 17 minutes, a fucking 17-minute song? Holy shit. I remember the first time I ever gave Animals a spin, I was like, "What the fuck? These tracks are so long." And I listened to the album, and I thought I thought it was incredible throughout. I love this album, especially its commentary on corrupt businessmen and corrupt government officials and the blind followers of said businessmen and government officials. All of that. I just love this album throughout, and despite the length of the tracks, aside from of course Pigs on the Wing, but those are just little tracks that are just meant to bookend the album and nothing more. But still, regardless of the length of the tracks, I listen to this album a lot, and it's definitely my favorite Pink Floyd album ever. Again, laugh at me all you want. Say, yeah, I definitely didn't see Animals coming, especially since I showed my Google Chrome background earlier. But anyways, yeah, it's goof on me all you want for picking Animals as my favorite. But again, I just can't help it. It's just so great throughout, honestly. But anyways, whew, that's my Pink Floyd tier list. How long have I been going? The little touch bar on my MacBook Pro tells me how long I've been going. Jesus Christ, 29 minutes. Oh my god. I did not think I've been talking about Pink Floyd for this long. I was hoping to not make this video too long, but here we are. Anyway, Pink Floyd forever. Love Pink Floyd. Easily my favorite band of all time. And I'm sure most people watching this are also Pink Floyd fans. And again, if you got mad of any of my choosings in this tier list, where I ranked each album, if you got mad at a certain ranking, fine. As long as you could respectfully disagree and not call me a fucking retard in the comments for, what I over my opinions on each album, then yeah, uh, I can respect your opinion. And plus, of course, you could just do what I did and make your own tier list, of course, because again, I watched a tier list video, got pissed off, and was compelled to do my own Pink Floyd tier list video. But anyways, I'm dragging this video too long now, aren't I? Anyway, that's all I have to say, or in this case, that's all I have to rank. Bye bye.